Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for having us. My name is Brian Knapp. I'm with CBiz Weeks in Callaway, an insurance employee benefits consulting firm. We've had the pleasure to work with a lot of you in the room for the last 14, 15 years or so, as I think has been the relationship that we've had with CMAA. So thank you so much for having us again this year, and we look forward to the continued partnership. A couple hours ago, I was actually notified that I was going to be making the introduction for Kelly, which ironically, I've known Kelly for a number of years now through another organization, the local SHRM chapter in Palm Beach County. Kelly is an award-winning speaker, executive coach, and the founding principal of the Kelly Merbler Company, a leadership consulting firm specializing in strengths-based employee engagement and retention programs, leadership and development, and culture building. Kelly believes everyone has the ability to be inspired, an inspired and transformational leader who empowers others to rise to their greatest potential. She sparks organizations, leaders, and teams to find their passion and purpose by operating in their strengths, leading to more fulfilling personal and professional lives. Following the loss of her mother to dementia in 2014, Kelly discovered her passion for helping others, discovered her purpose when she attended a leadership conference where her now mentor, John C. Maxwell, was the keynote. Since then, she's become a Gallup certified strengths coach and faculty member for the Maxwell Leadership. Join me in welcoming Kelly Merbler.
Thank you, Brian. Brian is an amazing young man, so let's give him another round of applause, please. Can you all hear me okay? Yes, okay, wonderful. So thank you so much for having me. This is my very first CMAA event, and I am so excited to be here. But I was given the challenge of being the keynote after the lunchtime session. So I do know that that does bring a little extra work, but I do have someone in the audience that has volunteered to help me get a little rah-rah going. So I think Dan from Quail Ridge, are you in the room? So Dan, can you help me? Thank you. Thank you, Dan.
On three, we're going to go rah, 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 okay? 1, 2, 3.
Rah! Love it. Okay. Thank you so much, Dan.
It's my one-person way.
Very good, very good. So thank you, Dan. I really appreciate it. I am so happy that I can share this afternoon with all of you. I've waited a long time for this. I live right up the road in Wellington, Florida, but I too have been in the club industry for, I'd say, the past 10 to 12 years. Now, I physically don't work inside a country club, but I am married to someone that works inside clubs, and I really understand what you all go through. I know what season feels like. I know what challenges that come in your industry, and I absolutely feel that I have been a part of the club industry since my husband has been a part of the club industry. So this afternoon, what we're going to talk about, and we're going to have a true good discussion. It's not just going to be me talking at you, but we're going to have a discussion around the topics of leadership, culture, and engagement. And so those are three things that we'll be talking about. And as we get started, I'm just going to ask you to look at the person to your left or to your right and let them know that you are so happy they came because they need to hear this information. Let them know. So ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to start with a little story about leadership and what led me here to what I do today. 5 years ago, I decided to walk away from my corporate role, my six-figure salary, and the stability that I had in my job to pursue a passion to help organizations and leaders develop into the potential that they had within them. I fell in love with the process of learning and development throughout my own journey of learning how to be a better leader. And a little bit about me, I spent 21 years working in the recruiting and staffing industry. So if anyone's having challenges in the recruiting and staffing area, I know that pain. I lived that world for 21 years. But I was a really high producer in that industry. And for about 10 of those years, I was an individual contributor. All I had to worry about was me, myself, and I. And as a high contributor in a KPI and sales-driven industry, what happens when a high producer sees that there's a manager spot that is open in the organization? Management asks you to become the manager. That's how it always happens in a sales role. You get promoted, but often you don't get developed. And I'm here to say that I learned a lot about that promotion is not employee development. And it's something that I see quite often in the organizations that I'm fortunate to partner and work with. And that's where I really found the passion, that I wanted to partner with other organizations and leaders and help them understand what that journey of an employee like myself and like many people that you have met in your club or in your career, that the promotion that they had or will receive is not truly what development is all about. You see, I developed a nickname within my organization, so I don't know if any of you have a nickname within your club or something that they call you, but because I was a high producer, my last name is Merbler, they decided to give me the nickname of Money Merbler. I was really good at watching the P&L and chasing the bottom line. I was given all the tools I needed to learn how to manage that P&L, so I knew it to a T. I knew everything that we spent, and I was really good at cutting costs within my organization. That's how I inherited the name Money Merbler. But when I got promoted, guess what happened? I had no idea what I was walking into, going from an individual contributor to a leader of people. And I wouldn't even call myself a leader back then. I was truly what I would say is a manager. And so I think about this, and I'm going to challenge you. You each have a workbook in front of you. And I'm going to ask you if you would kindly get that out, because we're going to do a couple of questions here. And I want to ask you all to be thinking about this. Think about you as a leader. When is the last time you did something for the first time? When is the last time you asked the people you lead how you are doing as a leader? Because if you want to know how you're doing as a leader, ask the people you lead. And so let's talk about what is the difference between management and leadership. So I'm going to ask you to look to the person to your left or to your right and share what you think management and leadership truly mean. Go ahead, take a couple moments. Come on back in. We're going to bring it back in. Come on back in. I love all this sharing. So the difference between management and leadership. Those are two words that have very different meanings. But I didn't understand what the difference was because I followed what I always saw was supposed to be the right way, which was managing the bottom line. That's what was most important in our organization. So I followed the lead that I was always shown because I didn't know what I didn't know. But when I think about profit and loss, I think about why did I also have retention problems? Why were people constantly feeling burnout? Why was I having engagement issues? And why weren't people telling other people that the culture that we had was a place that they too wanted to pull people in to be a part of? So I admit it, I wasn't doing well. I went from that high performer to knowing everything I could know to the best of my ability to becoming an average manager where I was failing. I needed someone to help me. I needed someone to show me the way. And so in 2014, I think everything happens for a reason. But I ended up going to a conference called Live to Lead in Boynton Beach, Florida. And at the time, it was simulcast. No one was there physically. It was a gathering of people where on a video screen, we had 4 speakers that came in to talk to us about leadership. And the keynote speaker was Dr. John Maxwell. And I don't know what it was, but it was something about the message and being in the right place at the right time where I found myself saying, that's someone that has a different way of looking at leadership in a way that I'd never heard before. He was talking about purpose. He was talking about engagement, culture, and how to create a company, an organization where people want to follow the mission. He talked about servant leadership. I walked out of that conference saying, I want to learn from this guy. This guy knows what he's doing, but I didn't realize the impact he had on the world until I really started looking into his background, where he was someone that was named as the #1 leadership guru in the world by Inc. magazine, by Fortune magazine, by Success magazine, and the American Management Association. And so that night, that fateful night in October of 2014, I ran home. And I sat down and I started to craft a letter. And I put my heart into that letter and I asked and I said, I don't know if this will ever get into the hands of anyone, but I want to ask for someone's help, and I want it to be Dr. John C. Maxwell. That night, I clicked send on my email and let it go to the universe and said, whatever happens is going to happen, but at least I tried. Go big or go home, right? The next day, I was sitting at my desk working on a job order, recruiting a candidate, and my phone rang. Now, I don't know about you, but when an unlisted number comes on your phone, do you pick up? I didn't either, so I just said, let it go to voicemail. So I let that phone go to voicemail, and I said, I'll catch it later, went back to my job and kept doing my work. That night, I noticed there was an email sitting in my email. And the email was titled, lunch, ? I opened that email and it said one line, I tried to call you, but your voicemail was full, Kelly. I will have lunch with you and I would love to mentor you. John C. Maxwell. And that was a pivotal moment in my leadership journey where I found someone that was willing to believe in me. Not just promote me, but willing to give me time, to give me the understanding of what true leadership was all about, because what I had and what so many people out there have within them that we don't even recognize sometimes because we don't take the time to really understand them. I was hungry for it, and I wanted to grow. And see, when you have someone in your organization or within your club or on your team that's hungry and they want to grow, That's someone that can do a whole lot for your culture. And that borrowed belief is what set me off a path to help me understand truly how could I be better so I could get better for my team. And when I think about that and the lessons that I learned throughout that, I realized how off I was on what management and what leadership really mean. And so as you look at your notes or as the conversation that you had with the person sitting next to you, what is the difference? What is the difference? Is there anyone willing to share? What is a manager and what is a leader? Because we need both in our clubs. Don't get me wrong. In order to run a successful club, you've got to have good management, you've got to have good systems, and you've got to have great leadership. They both marry so well together, but if you have one and not the other, we're in trouble. So what is the difference between management and leadership? Anybody willing to share? I know this isn't a shy group. I'll go back to Dan. He's a rah-rah guy. How about you?
Process-oriented versus instinct-oriented.
Process-oriented versus instinct-oriented. Absolutely. Anyone else? Go ahead, sir. Michael.
Telling people what you want them to do versus getting people to buy in and support what you want them to do.
Telling people what you want them to do versus buy-in and getting them to support what you want them to do. Thank you, Michael. Hi, Dave.
Hey, Sean said it really well. He said analytics versus inspiration.
Ooh, analytics versus inspiration. And you need both, right? We need the data, but we need to inspire as well. I don't know about you, but I don't want to be managed, but I do want to be led. Absolutely. And so one thing John taught me, and I'll just share this with you, is that leadership is one word. It's influence. Nothing more, nothing less. Influence. And we all in this room, whether you are leading as a GM, you're leading food and beverage, you're leading the tennis team, or you are leading your department, or if you don't even have that title, I share this with all of you here because everyone in this room, whether you are leading people or you're not, you have the ability to influence others. And sometimes your greatest influencers are those that don't even carry the title. And so leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. It's service. It's not self. See, a lot of leaders that I've met throughout the years, they have what John calls is destination disease. What's destination disease? It's when we get to that spot in our career where we've reached the title or the certain name on our business card. Maybe we've gotten that front row parking spot, or we've gotten the corner office with the nice view of the golf course. But we stop learning and we stop growing. We're at our destination where we think we've learned everything we need to know, when in fact, learning is infinite. Growth and development never stop. And one of the greatest lessons I learned is that so many of us as leaders, I was guilty of this as well. I used to defend. I used to fight back the feedback thinking I was always right and I didn't want to hear it sometimes because why shouldn't my team think like me if I've always been successful at it? But sometimes we're anxious to improve our circumstances, but we're unwilling to improve ourselves, and therefore we remain bound. Now, one of my favorite leadership books, I'll share it with you, is The 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. Has anyone in this room ever read this book? Curious. A few of you? This is where I learned so much. And the greatest lesson in that book is law number 1, the law of the lid. Now, what does the law of the lid really mean? The law of the lid states that as leaders, we all have a lid on our potential of leadership. And so let's just say in the room that all of us are level 5 leaders on a scale of 1 to 10. So we're an average leader. What that tells us is that everyone that we lead, our department, the team, maybe the club if we're in a senior level position, everyone that we lead is going to fall under that lid of our leadership. And that lid is about how effective we are as a leader. And so what I have learned, especially in recruiting and wanting to get really great people into my organization, when you meet someone that has a higher lid than you do as a leader, they will recognize that. 8s will not want to follow a 5. And that's absolutely true, because I watched it happen time and time again when we'd have somebody really strong, really good come into our organization. But if the leader wasn't someone that would inspire them, that they felt they could grow with, and that they could have development within that role, they went looking for it elsewhere. And so in your workbook, I'm going to ask you to look at the question that says, how would you rate your lid on your leadership? Now, I'm going to ask you to strike out the number 5, because that's a cop-out. We can't go right in the middle. So just cross out number 5. And if you were to really think about that and be honest with yourself, because honesty is where we really start to grow, when we're honest with ourselves, and nobody's going to see this number. So if you were to really, truly rate the lid on your leadership today, whether you're a GM, you're an intern, or you're in marketing, where do you truly feel that your capacity to lead really falls based on where you're at today? Now, the good news is, if you are honest with yourself and you see that you have room for opportunity, that's good, because you recognize that there's an area of opportunity for you to get better in. Now, the next question I'll ask you, if you were to put that question in front of your team, would they rate you the same? Or would it be misaligned? Because so often, leaders, we think that our level of leadership is a lot higher than what our team sees, based on how honest we are with ourselves. And that's where we really start to go within, and we start to ask the questions. Do I really want to get better? Do I truly care for my team? And do I want to put the work into building a culture that people walk into and say, I can't wait to go to work every day? How do you know if you have a good culture? It's how your employees feel on a Sunday afternoon will answer that question. Do they get excited about Monday morning coming? Or do they have what I used to have? I'd call it the Sunday scaries, where I started to get a little anxiety because I knew that I wasn't going into a culture that truly valued or truly cared. What I have learned over the past 5 years of working with different clubs, different organizations, and different leadership teams is that there's 3 things that truly make what I would call a mighty team. So let's look at those 3 things. Number 1, they are engaged at work. We'll talk about that. Number 2, they have a clear sense of purpose. And number 3, they celebrate each other's strengths. And so think, where do you rate your team in these 3 areas? So let's talk about each one. So what does it mean to be engaged? This is an important question to really be thinking about. What does engagement truly entail? So Gallup is the organization that when I was looking to grow myself, I went and got certified through Gallup. So a lot of the data that I share today is going to be Gallup data from case studies and analytics that they've done over the past 4 decades. And so what does it mean to be engaged? When we think about engagement, there are 3 levels of employee engagement. And so think about this within your club. Where would that fall? So number 1, you have employees that are what we call engaged at work. And so what does that mean? That doesn't just mean that they're happy when they go to work. That means that they're psychological owners of where they go to work. They are connected with the mission, the vision, and the values of what your club stands upon. Now, within the American workforce today, we have about 33% of our workforce that shows up every day feeling engaged. Out of 100. That means there's a lot of opportunity. The second level of engagement is what we call not engaged. This is where the majority of our American workforce lies. We have about 54% of our workforce that sits right here, but don't get me wrong, these are not bad employees. Not bad at all. I went from an engaged employee to a not engaged employee within a matter of 2 years. These are employees, they go to work, they do their job, they might have a great attitude, and they're very loyal. But by 5 o'clock, they may have backed their car into the parking spot because they cannot wait to get home. They may be at 4:50 on the clock, tying their shoes, waiting for that moment when 5 o'clock hits. Because when they're gone, they're gone. Now, there's nothing wrong with this employee, but it shows the difference. When you have an engaged employee versus a not engaged employee, an engaged employee may work later. An engaged employee may continue to do work at home because it doesn't feel like work to them. They feel like they're doing something meaningful that's connected with their mission and purpose and values, and that they're contributing to the club as a whole. Now, we all have these. About 12% of our workforce falls right here. These are what we call actively engaged employees, actively disengaged employees. These are the employees that they're resentful. They don't feel like they're valued. They don't feel like they're heard. And so what does that look like? So let's say if we're walking through the office within your club on a Monday morning, a piece of paper lies on the floor. The engaged employee will walk by and they will pick it up because they care. That not engaged employee will walk by and say, there's a piece of paper, I'm going to get a coffee. The actively disengaged employee probably put it there. And that's your difference. So when you think about your club, where do you think your workforce sits? Now here's an interesting statistic. 70% of engagement, 70, is connected to leadership. If the leader isn't engaged, the employees have no hope. And if the leader isn't involved, engagement plummets. I've seen this firsthand. I've seen highly engaged cultures go down to not engaged when leadership changes or when new leadership comes in. And I've seen not engaged employees go from not engaged to actively disengaged. Leadership truly matters. And so let's think about this. Leadership is connected with culture. Now, there's a few people in here that I've been able to have the pleasure to work with that I truly commend based on what I've seen inside their club. They're doing an amazing job. And that deserves to be recognized because developing culture is not easy. If leadership were easy, everyone would do it. But we all know the challenges that it comes with. So, what is the definition of culture? How do you define it? Because you can't really touch it, but you know it's there. And so, how do you define culture? Is there anyone willing to take a stab at that? What do you think? Dave, do you want to say that?
Through philosophies and values.
Philosophies and values. Very good.
Guiding principles.
Guiding principles. Yes, thank you. On the other side of the room, anyone? Go ahead in the back.
Series of habits that are repeated.
Series of habits that are repeated. Were you going to say something?
Just respectful.
Respectful. Very good. So all of these answers are right on. And I'll share one more with you that I just saw it and I'm like, that's just so perfectly true. So how does Gallup define culture? Gallup defines culture as, it's how we do things around here. Think about that. How do you do things around your club? And do the actions match the words? Because if there's misalignment, people are seeing it. And so think about that. On your worksheet, there's a question that asks you, on a scale of 1 to 10, cross out 5, 5's out. Where do you rate your culture right now? 10 being amazing, don't need to change a thing. 1 being at the low end. And if you're giving yourself an honest rating, if it's high, what are you doing well? So often we don't look at what's working versus studying why something isn't working. So if you have a good culture, what is working? But then if you did give yourself a lower rating, where are the areas of opportunity? So what I'll share with you, there are 4 needs that followers have of their leaders. And this little guy, he is so stubborn. There we go. So healthy culture never happens by accident. If you have been to an organization or a brand or a company that you consistently go back to, there's a culture that you notice. Think about maybe a restaurant that you attend, you go to eat at. Why do you keep going back to that restaurant? Think about a store that you keep going back to. Or think about in an organization where maybe you work there now. Maybe it was in the past. What made you get excited to go into that culture? Because culture is a combination of what you create and what you allow. And culture is the intangibles. You can't touch it, but you can absolutely feel it. And culture is defined by your values, because what we value determines what we do. So what do your values within your club culture say that you do? Now, Dave Sweet, Boca Woods, this is an area that I'm just going to give you high five on, because this is something I watched Dave put a lot of work into in developing the culture within Boca Woods. Dave, can you kind of share what was the exercise that you did that really helped create those values within your club?
So we started out surveying all department heads to understand what resonated with them, what they care about, ask them to dig into their teams to come back with value words that were important to them, and then we shaped those value words into an acronym character and then supported it with a mission and vision. It was probably a 4-month exercise, and it all came together during an employee rally at the end of November this past year, where we brought all 220 employees in together, really for the first time. Split them up so there was no one department represented, just had everybody mixed up. And in preparing for it, the department heads brainstormed about what would be the big obstacles to success. And so we ended up partnering with a company and renting translator devices. And we named a Creole translator and a Spanish translator, sat in the back of the room and dictated, and it was actually Kelly who was presenting for us, who partnered with delivering the mission and vision for the team. Pretty cool. And then from there, about an hour and a half of this sort of a setup, then we broke out for lunch and into a workshop session where there were groups of 12, again, all mixed at random, and those 12 people connected with workshop together, and then they came back and presented to the entire group on the stage what culture meant to them. First things like songs or chants or quick skits, and they had lots. It was pretty cool.
That didn't happen by accident. There was so much intentionality that went into the work, and that took months, about 4 months ahead of time?
4 months.
Yeah, it took work. It took rolling up our sleeves. It took a lot of due diligence, and it took a lot of voices from the employee population. But that's what starts to define a culture where how do you do things around here? Because if there isn't a set of core values, how do people know what they're doing well? So that's where the values truly set as a foundation within your club to give you a guiding principle. Someone used that word earlier, those words earlier, and that's a perfect way of saying it. Those are the guiding principles, because if we say we value trust, yet trust doesn't show up within the employees or the leadership, do we really value that? If we say we value innovation within our club, we want to do things differently, but yet when someone brings an idea to the table or to a town hall meeting, and we immediately shut it down and we don't even listen to it, do we really value innovation? And so this exercise, and at the end, I've got a great little worksheet. If you want to download it, I created it for you all. You're welcome to use it, so I'll make sure I put that up there if you want to scan it. But that exercise right there is such a great guideline for creating values within your club. Club culture is shaped by you. So many times leaders will engage me and say, Kelly, I want to have you come in here and help you build the culture. We need to build the culture. We don't build culture. Culture is created by how you show up. That's what the culture starts with. So how are you showing up as a leader or as a team member? And it's not just on one person. Often, HR gets put with building culture. HR is a part of the process. But culture is created by how everyone on the team shows up and lives the values, recognizes the values within the organization, and celebrates the values within the organization. Policies don't change culture. People do. So if you're thinking, wow, I have a great culture, then celebrate that. What are those values that you're seeing and witnessing that are coming to life that should be recognized, that the employees are living out and the leaders are living out? Or if you have a culture that you say, wow, we need to do some work here, that's okay. Because it starts with the recognition that there is opportunity to work within the culture. And then the work can begin. But that's why we have to be honest with ourselves. And so we're going to do a little breakout session here where I'm going to ask you all to have a conversation. I can get my slide to move. We will be, Beth, if you can move that forward, that would be great. Thank you, Beth. One more. Thank you. So there are 4 universal needs that Gallup found that followers have of their leaders. Now, this was surveyed with thousands of team members across many demographics over the past 2 years. And so what are those 4 needs? This is what employees are asking for most. And so let's look at them. Number 1, Beth, you can click it, trust, stability, compassion, and hope. In your worksheet, you will see a rating scale right there. Go ahead, you know the ritual, cross out 5. 5's a cop-out. If you think about your club culture and you think about these values, if these were the values that stood within your culture, where do you fall as a club culture, as a whole? Where do you fall in trust? Do employees trust what they see in the leadership? Do they trust when they hear something that it's the truth? Stability. How do we define stability? Stability is about the here and now. When we think about stability, as we think about leadership, is there a culture within your club that allows the team members to know that you're here? If they have a question and they want to ask something, is your presence there? Are you a leader that's present? Number 3, compassion. Within your club, what is the state of compassion within the leadership? There were 3 questions John taught me, and I'll share those with you because it goes right back to compassion. Employees want to know, can I trust you as my leader? Can I trust you? Number 2, can you help me? Can you help me get where I want to go? As my leader, can you help me develop? Can you help me grow? And number 3 goes right to compassion. Do you care for me as my leader? Do you understand what it feels like to be in the kitchen sometimes? Do you understand what it feels like to be in accounting sometimes and the things that we deal with members yelling at us? Do you understand what it's like to be at the front desk sometimes when a member comes in and is very upset? Do you understand that I've been working for 60 hours a week, I'm exhausted, and I'm giving everything I have, and then after work I go home and I take care of my elderly mother? Is there compassion there? And last, hope. Hope is forward thinking. Stability is about today, but hope is about the future. Yes, we're tired. Season's coming again. It's right around the corner. And we know we're going to be putting a lot of extra hours in. But we know as a team, we're going to come together and we're going to have the best season that we've ever had because we are united. We know what we stand for. And we know what we value. And as a team, we care for each other. So on the second part of your worksheet, there's some questions for you to be thinking about. So I'm going to give you a little bit of time here. I'm going to give you 15 minutes to have a discussion. If you were to look at each one of these different values, trust, stability, compassion, and hope, with the team members around you, which one is the one that you think you're doing the best in? Where do you rate yourself the highest? And which one do you have the greatest area of opportunity within your club culture to work towards? Now, I know some of you are sitting with your teams that you work with on a daily basis, and some of you are scattered around and you're meeting new friends today. We can learn a lot from people that work in different clubs that might have great ideas that they're executing right now, or you might have an idea that's sitting within your team that maybe has never been heard or shared. So I'm going to give you 15 minutes to have that conversation and see what you can come up with. What could be an action item if you were to think about how could you build trust within your club, if that's your area of opportunity, or compassion? But take 15 minutes, and then we'll come back together. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I tried to get in as many of those conversations as I could and just see where were your areas of opportunity, where were your strengths, which one are you really excelling in? And there were different answers all across the board. Nobody had the same. There's a few that had a few the same, but they were very mixed up. So what I'd like to do, this is how we learn, this is how we grow. So one of the examples over here, I'm going to go to Vineet from Hunter's Run. Let's give Vineet a hand here. Vineet? So Vineet, with your group, and you all work together, where was your grade, but you don't work in the same club?
No.
Okay. Okay, so you're all friends. So in your discussion, like where was your greatest area of opportunity and what could you do to take action on it? Here you go.
Good afternoon, everybody. Hi. Good afternoon, everybody. While we were talking about HOP, we all were discussing about forward planning. But while we are talking, we see all those 4 categories are mixed together, and all about, we were talking about forward planning and upcoming season. We do that on annually basis whenever we have upcoming season coming, new clubhouse coming, or construction. So we were just focusing on hope and giving an forward planning to the employees and clear communication. That's what we were discussing.
So
Thank you.
hope was yours. Hope. Did anyone else? Let's see a show of hands. Who in the room has the opportunity to work on hope? Let's see within the room. Okay. What about trust? Who had the opportunity to work on trust? Now, trust is the foundation of culture. If you don't have trust, you are not going to have compassion. You're not going to have stability. You definitely won't have hope if you don't have trust. So is there something that you all discovered?
Say, and I part of my, I tell my daughters the same thing at home. And trust is built. It's very, very simple. Trust is doing what you say you're going to do.
Yes.
That's how you create trust, and that's how you destroy trust by not doing it. So if I had a department head or an employee asking how they could build better trust, that's how I would coach them.
Very good. Very good. So how many pick trust? Let me just see you raise the hands here. Okay. The one I heard the most was compassion. If you chose compassion, raise your hands. Is there anybody willing to share, like, what are you noticing about compassion, and where is your area of opportunity, and what is an action item? What could you do? Dave, you want to take it? I see all your hand.
Yeah, I think we all got blown up after COVID, where there was really no need for hospitality for a period of time, and then there's all this pent-up demand, and everybody comes flooding in. So compassion is a pretty important thing, because now supply is trying to meet that pent-up demand, right? We're trying to find stability. And we talked about how hourly team members have been put through the run based on all of the demand and the want from members, and asking for that amped up experience level again. So we talked a little bit about developing skip level retreats or luncheons to be able to connect with the hourly staff and to make sure that they have the tools that they need to be successful, and just learn what's going on in their worlds and in their lives to be sure that we can be a partner in doing right by them.
Very good. Very good. Yeah, compassion. There's a lot of people that are needing to have a place to just be heard right now. Think about the mental health crisis that's going on. We were having a discussion at one of the tables as well with the different generations that are in the workforce. And if you don't know this, by the year 2025, which that's not far away, 75% of your workforce will be the millennial generation. It's coming fast. And right behind it, you've got Gen Z. Now, one thing I have noticed, because I do work with a lot of emerging leadership teams where it's the high potential within your team, that has that potential to grow and be the future assistant GM or GM. One thing I will tell you in the years that I've been working with that emerging generation is a clear sense of purpose is extremely important to both millennial generation and your Gen Z generation. Personally, I think it's important in most generations, but it's really important in that younger generation. So how do we develop that clear sense of purpose? When people walk into your club and they know that they truly have a place where they feel like their job is important. From that sous chef, to your housekeeper, to that front desk receptionist, all the way up to leadership. Does everyone in your club feel as though they are connected with purpose and that their job is meaningful? I saw it in action just recently on Mother's Day weekend. I had to travel for a speaking engagement to Dallas, Texas on Mother's Day weekend. And as a mom of 2 teenage boys, it was nice to get out of the house, I'm not gonna lie. But I wanted to be with my family on Mother's Day. So I stayed at a hotel that I had stayed at quite a few times, and I guess they know who I am at this point because they must know something about me, but I noticed that I wasn't having the best day. I was kind of down because I was away from home. It was Sunday, and I thought, you know what, I just got to get out of here and take a walk, get my mind off of things, and lighten up my mood. Got to change the attitude that I walked in with. I came back from my walk, and I noticed that in my bathroom was this beautiful note that Josephina, the housekeeper, had left for me. Now, Josephina didn't know me, but Josephina somehow knew that I was a mom. And that right there totally changed my mood for the day, because someone cared enough to serve the guest because they knew that their job had a purpose. So I went looking for Josephina because I wanted to personally thank her. And I found her and I said, Josephina, I just have to introduce myself to you because what you did really made a difference and it didn't cost anything. And I said, I have to know, what makes you do that? And she said, Miss Kelly, it's a pleasure to meet you and serve you. Our values here and our core principle is we create guest for life experiences. And we want every guest to feel that they matter. And because I can do that for someone like you, I know that my job matters. And right there, you have a $12 an hour housekeeper that knows that she has a purpose. Now, that didn't happen by accident. That was created because there was a culture where their team understands the values that they live by, and they recognize when those values come off the employee halls and into the halls. Those values breathe life. They come to life in the behaviors of how every employee shows up within that hotel. So why are we putting so much attention on purpose and culture and engagement? You tell me. I hear it all the time. You want your members to have a great experience, don't you? Who is your number one customer? It's your employee. Your members are important, don't get me wrong. But that employee that serves your members, they are your number one customer, because if they feel that they have purpose, that they have meaning in the work that they do, and what they contribute is celebrated, then their engagement goes up. And what happens when employee engagement goes up? Member engagement goes up. So what we're talking about today is you have kickoff coming around again for season. Do you want to create a team that has high engagement, so they feel that what they do matters, that there is purpose when they clock in every morning? And do you want your members to feel that same way? What we're talking about does matter. See, a lot of leaders that I talk to, they will say, and I get it because I was there and I know how it feels, I've been there. We have a million things going on. How can we add one more thing to our plate like engagement? Ladies and gentlemen, engagement is the whole plate. And if you don't look at it, you will never get to the level of excellence that you have the potential to within your club to serve the members that you serve. Beth, can you click forward for me? Thank you. So what are your team's core values and how will you operate? Do you have a set of values? Because most that I work with, they've never had that conversation. Or it's in the employee handbook, right? So when they start, they see it in the employee handbook. So the values have been rolled out, but we never talk about it again. It's on the website. People know where to find it, right? But we never talk about it again. So I challenge all of you to be thinking about this. What are your team's core values and how will you operate? What are the behaviors that you see within the team that serves within your club? What are those values that are most recognizable, that are already there? And how can you create an opportunity to build upon those? Most of the work that I do is in this area. And this is a game changer. So I'll back it up. What were 3 things that make a mighty team? Number 1, they are engaged at work. We talked about engagement. Number 2, they have a clear sense of purpose, their values. And number 3, they celebrate each other's strengths. How many of you in the room have ever taken the assessment Strength Finders or Clifton Strengths? I bet there's quite a few of you in here. I'd like to see. So I'll share this with you. I like to give good resources out. So this little book, Strength Finders, was something that absolutely changed the way I led my team. There's an assessment that's in the back of this book, and what it identified were, as a leader, where did my greatest talents lie? Because I don't know about you, I followed what I always saw. And every time I had a meeting with my employee, or maybe an annual review or a quarterly meeting, for 58 minutes of that hour, we would focus on what does the employee need to get better at? What's their individual development plan where they have the opportunity to grow, where they're not doing as well? And 2 minutes, we would celebrate what they did really well that year, or that quarter, or that month. When I truly understood what my natural strengths were, and when I help other leaders understand what their natural strengths are, it totally flipped how I thought about how to lead a team. Because what it taught me, and what it teaches me every day, do we really know the talent that we have on our team? Because there's so many opportunities for us to truly get more connected with the people that we lead. Because don't get me wrong, there's a lot of communication that's going on out there. How many emails do you have? Yeah, you're out of work today, right? Yeah, you got a lot of emails. How many voice messages do you have? How many texts are you getting from your team right now? How many newsletters are you getting and updates? Everyone is communicating, but so few, and what separates good leaders from great is connection. And when we can truly understand the talent that we have within our team and the strengths that they have within them, that is where our opportunity to take a club that's already good to a level of excellence that has the greatest potential. Because what would happen if we truly focused in our area of expertise and truly where our natural innate strengths are, and we developed those areas within our team members? What if we truly looked at what's right with people instead of fixating on what's wrong with people from a leadership perspective? And that's the statement that truly got me thinking. Because so often, we're trying to create people that are square pegs and round holes, when we have opportunities within people on our team around us that have the absolute ability to be brilliant in certain areas. If we only understood what those areas are, and how can we as a team help develop them to that greatest potential? Carl Horace, you're in the back there, my friend Carl. Carl, I know this is something that you truly have executed within a team. Carl, how has leading through strengths truly separated a good team from a great team?
For me, that's the reason where I'm at where I'm currently at the moment, because it's the people around me that I usually surround myself with that deliver the experience for our members. Started back with Carlton when we were there. So that's when I first learned about strength finding. And the people we built around, so they all take the test as well. And we kind of know what we can build on. And then I follow that for the rest of my career. And it's always paid dividend, 100%.
Yeah, this is something that not only with a team, that can really also help in areas working with your boards. That's something I've seen some magic come to as well. Understanding what are the strengths that each of your board members have, that they bring to those board meetings and discussions. But when we think about strengths, that's where employee engagement is truly connected. Because when we focus on what's right with people, instead of fixating on what's wrong with people, that's where people truly feel that they're contributing and that they're seen. I don't know about you, but there are two things in the majority of my coaching conversations that I have that employees of all generations all want, and they're the same two things. They want to feel valued, and they want to feel heard. And when we can help someone recognize where they have a natural talent that can help them in the role that they're paid to do, and we can allow them to use that in the role that they're paid to do, or potentially, maybe there's an area of opportunity within your club that strength would truly help you get to another level. But what does that mean? We have to have a conversation. We have to take the time to understand who is on our team. And when we take the time to understand more about people, what does that do? What were the 4 needs of followers? That helps build compassion. That helps build trust. Because some of you in this room, you're brand new to your role. Maybe you just stepped into your role into the club that you're in now. And you're in the midst of trying to establish trust. And most of you in this room, when I walked around, were working on compassion. What better way to tell someone that you see them and you value them than to ask them what they wish they could do more of in the job that they're paid to do? What makes them come alive? And truly, where do they have the highest level of engagement when they're working on a team? So as we wrap up this discussion, it's really important to think about what are some of the key things that you learned from your peers today, you've learned from our discussion, but what's most important, what are you going to do with it? So many leadership retreats that go on like this. But what happens when the day is over and you're back in your club tomorrow? When you think about one thing, what is one thing that you can do that matters most to the team that you serve? So just quickly share with your team member, what's one action item that you could do going back to work on Wednesday that will help you take a step forward in creating the culture or taking the culture that's already good to the next level? Take a couple minutes, and then we're going to wrap it up. All right, we're going to bring it back in. Bring it back in. Does everybody have that one thing? I know you have a lot on your plate. We're not asking to boil the ocean. We're starting small. And I want you to think about these two words. Probably the most common question I get is, Kelly, how do I motivate my team? I'm here to tell you, you can't motivate your team. Motivation comes from within. But you can inspire a team, bar none. Motivation is about lighting a fire under people. You need them to get something done. Inspiring people is lighting a fire within them, where they want to do something because you inspire something within them. And I know you have a lot going on. And I'm not here to just throw a lot more work on you. What I will say is, what matters most? What do you want your leadership legacy to be 10 years from now? Are you leading the way that you want to be remembered? And if you are, celebrate that, because it's not easy. And if you have a leader that is leading the way that inspires you, celebrate that leader. Because leaders aren't celebrated enough sometimes either. But if you're a leader that sees you have opportunity, just like I did 5 years ago, Just understand, even bad leaders can get better if you're willing to work on yourself and you're willing to be vulnerable and dig in and go deep. Now, some of you wanted to know how to take the Clifton strengths, so I'm going to move that forward, Beth, please, so they can scan that if they wish. Keep going, one more. So if anybody does need the QR code, this will take you right to the assessment that I use with teams that I work with. Yes, or it's on your worksheet. Good point. Thank you so much if you need it that way. And then there is a values worksheet. Beth, if you can keep going. There's another QR code that they can have. Keep going. Keep going. One more. Okay. So that's the values worksheet that I've created for all of you. If you wish to download that, I do not think that one is on your worksheet there. But on your worksheet, you do have the Clifton Strengths Assessment, and that's the one I work with. And then also on there, if you have any questions, you're welcome to reach out to me. So let's give all of you a big round of applause. Thank you for giving me your attention. And thank you so much. Beth, I'm going to turn it back to you.
Can we have one more round of applause for Kelly? Thank you.